Halo Episode 8. This one might have managed to be the worst episode of the season yet, which is astonishing considering how bad the show's been. Every character in this episode makes no sense at any point. Even not getting into canon issues, which there always are, this episode is just insane. So let's just get into it. Quan and Soren, who just had a whole episode, don't appear at all in this one. So you know their part's important to the story. When the second to last episode, they have no screen time. We start off with John and Maki. They're both staring at a mirror and thinking about Halo. He comes into her room and gives her clothes so that she can blend in, and they go walk around the city together. We get narration from Halsey during this part about how John wasn't the fastest or strongest, but in episode 3, I think it was 3, Cortana literally says he was the best Spartan, which would imply fastest and strongest, but whatever. So Halsey and her assistant are saying that his health is getting back to normal, and they use this opportunity to rape a little bit more than nostalgia from the games. Cortana says, "There's 2 of us inside his head now, remember? Fuck these people." Maki recites poetry as they walk through the city, and Parangoski and Keys are watching with a drone. John hangs out with her under some trees. Maki explains that the Covenant thinks the Halo will make them like gods and cleanse the unworthy, which are humans. John says he believes in hope and love and goodness and that humans are worth protecting. And all of this dialogue is so fucking cringy. So the MPs come and tell John there's a problem. And the problem is a planet called Criterion got glassed by the Covenant. I'm not sure how they got drone footage where the drone's flying like 5 feet over what looks like lava from all the plasma. I guess it's a really heat resistant drone, whatever. John says that he wants to fight. So obviously the solution here is to have Maki activate the artifact and communicate with the other artifact because he can't do it. Even though literally 5 minutes ago, she said that humanity needed to be cleansed. So this is the kind of logic we're getting in this fucking show. Keys and Parangoski say that she can't be trusted. So, at least they have some common sense. No, I'm just fucking kidding. 5 seconds later, they agree. Like they're completely retarded. We see Vanek and Riz, and I actually forgot their names because they've been so relevant to the show. And they're trying to get nav data from the Phantom that they stole in episode 1. Kai is lifting heavy things for fun, and Miranda is still messing around with that 3-second audio clip and saying Healy. Keys shows up, literally hat in hand, and hugs her and says if anyone can figure it out, it's you. And everyone pronounces Maki's name slightly differently, and I'm not sure how or why that happened. Miranda mentions that there's a weird accent in the audio, or a weird dialect. Maki is in her room, sad, and John goes to her room. He tells her that he trusts her and brings her a poetry book, so obviously they fuck. They have zero chemistry, the dialogue is shit, and as far as I can tell, neither one of them can act. This scene will make your fucking spine snap from the cringe. And also, Cortana's watching this because she's still in his head. So we've got like Cucktana, and just idiots everywhere. So they bone, and John passes out like he's on his fucking honeymoon. Maki goes to the sink and rips that stupid finger energy sword out, which is essentially just her fingernail, which still makes no sense, even if they try to justify it this way. And there's a little detail here that is kind of a nitpick, but it annoyed me. She has a sweater on when she goes over to the sink and no pants. And then we cut, and John is up and getting dressed, and she's naked under the blanket again. So just more great attention to detail there. And Halsey says that John has a girlfriend, and Cortana says that their connection is really deep based on chemicals. And I want to pause here for a second to talk about this deep relationship that they have. So just to be clear, from Chief's perspective, she fell from the sky after the Covenant took the artifact, is assumed to be a traitor to humanity. John interrogates her. They see each other in a hallucination on Halo. They walk through some pink trees, and then fuck. Who the fuck wrote this shit? And also, John passing out like that, if she was still an enemy spy, wouldn't it be worth it for her to trade her life for his? Like, if she killed him in his sleep, the Covenant has eliminated their biggest threat, which is the Master Chief, and a guy who can use the artifacts. So it's just completely irresponsible from John's perspective. From Maki's perspective, she refers to John as a demon and says that she's going to bring back his head to the prophets. She infiltrates, finds the artifact that she seeks. John interrogates her. They see each other in a hallucination on Halo. He takes her for a walk and gives her a poetry book. So then he gives her the D, and now they're in love. Who the fuck wrote this shit? And to me, this scene really exposes how inexperienced, untalented, or both these writers are. If you want to do this scene, what you really need is for them to have some time together and not about the artifacts, and then you can have people treat Maki with kindness, and maybe she questions her loyalty for some time, and maybe for Maki to, give them some actually useful information so that John starts to trust her and not think that she's a traitor. Even then, I think it would have been much better and more subtle for them to do something like almost kiss, and then you can have John say something like, I want to, but, and sort of leave the implication there that he's interested in her, but he can't quite trust her yet because he's not sure that she's not a spy. The route that they went was let's have them only be hostile together, interact for 5 minutes, and fuck, and she changes sides. So this is just complete fucking retardation. So moving on from that, Cortana says that John's not alone anymore, and Halsey says that he was never alone, he had me. And this line of dialogue is so terrible. First of all, in 5 minutes, she's about to contradict herself, and she says that she would sacrifice everyone for her goals and then orders the other Spartans to attack John. Second of all, she never could have, or at least shouldn't have, considered having this type of relationship with John. So either way, it makes no fucking sense. Keyes goes to Halsey and says he got some strings pulled so she can keep her ship, but she needs to be gone by noon, which is when Maki is supposed to go to the artifact. They argue, and he says her obsession with progress has cost her everything, her husband, her daughter, blah, blah, blah. And he says, what else will you sacrifice? And with zero hesitation, she says everything. So after she just said that she cared about John, she turns around and says, I would sacrifice anything for progress. Her assistant gives her a contact that matches Miranda's retinal scan, so now she has top clearance. No clue how they got her retinal information, but whatever. Halsey calls Maki in her room and tells her that her and John are in danger, and she says that the artifact can't go to humanity because humans are the problem with humanity. Halsey tells Maki to have Maki and John control Halo, and she wants them to bring themselves and the second artifact to Halsey to maximize humanity's potential. And then they do an obvious parallel here where between Halsey and the prophets wanting to be gods, so Maki hangs up on her. Halsey signals the Spartans, they suit up. They're supposed to bring John, Maki, and the artifact to Halsey. They suit up even though they're supposed to take orders from someone else now, and Halsey says no one in the upper ranks can be trusted because the artifact has compromised their judgment. Cortana shuts down all the comms except for the Spartan-Halsey back channel. She also tells them that John isn't well from the artifact and that they need to save him. Kai questions this order, so Halsey checks her hormone status and realizes she's cut her pill out too. So, in what is extremely obvious fashion for this show, Kai takes her helmet off to talk in a fucking combat situation, so she gets an elbow to the head and gets knocked out because she took her helmet off. And this is going to be even funnier in about 10 minutes, that they knocked her out with one blow, when John literally fights 2-on-1 with no armor, and they don't knock him out. So they knock her out, and Cortana starts questioning Halsey, and Halsey says once they have Maki, Cortana can have full control of John because they don't need him anymore. And again, what a great line of fucking dialogue after she just said that John was never alone because he had her. So John shows up to Maki's room to take her to the artifact, so everyone in the show at this point is heading to this one room at the same time. Maki asks John what they'll do if they take the Halo. He says defeat the Covenant. She says then what? He says I guess we'll see, because how could he possibly have an answer? And then she looks really scared. Miranda figures out it was Maki in the clip speaking Sangheili. Halsey tells Cortana to drop John on her signal. Cortana jumps into John's head and tells him that it's a trap and then cuts off all of Halsey's communications. John sends Maki away and to go find a Marine to protect her. He goes to an open room and he knows that Vanek and Riz are looking for him. Kai wakes up and literally kicks apart a concrete bench from her back with no leverage at all. It's a fucking laughable scene that makes no fucking sense. It doesn't matter how strong you are if you don't have any leverage. Vanek and Riz attack John in their full armor, and John is in his undersuit, and Riz punches John like 20 feet, but it's cool, fuck physics. Maki sees this fight, and she runs. She runs into the MP that hates her, and he drags her to the artifact room. Parangoski and Keyes don't believe her about the other Spartans attacking John, so John and Riz and Vanek have a 2-on-1 hand-to-hand fight, with John not in armor. And this is the kind of shit that makes Hollywood so fucking stupid. They think the purpose of armor is decorative, and the purpose of the armor is to enhance the Spartans' abilities and protect them. They make a point of showing Vanek's shield throughout this fight and talking about it getting lower. Like, they understand that it has shields and that it's supposed to make their abilities exaggerated. So it's just ridiculous. They try to use Cortana helping John as justification for this fight, but it's just absurd. They think that the purpose of the armor is just to look badass because they're fucking idiots. And Cortana in this world, I guess it's just magic. She turns on and drives a warthog and rams Vanek into a column. What is equally retarded is that he pushes it straight back with his back pinned against the wall. So he essentially bench presses an accelerating warthog when he's pinned up against the wall. Makes no fucking sense. So they finally start beating John's ass, eventually. Vanek kicks John in the chest and he flies like 30 feet again. But again, it's cool, fuck physics. Remember when they knocked Kai out with one elbow to the head? 10 minutes ago? Like, did no one fucking read their own script or watch the show themselves? So Marines start to go to Halsey's ship to stop her from leaving because Keyes and Parangoski realize that the comms are down. Vanek threatens to shoot Chief in the head. Who the fuck wrote this? Kai shows up and stops Vanek from doing it, and Vanek tells Riz to shoot him, but she can't do it. Like, who the fuck wrote this? Not only would one of the Spartans not execute another Spartan, his orders were literally to bring him back to the ship. So it makes no fucking sense. Even if he's just a mindless robot who only follows orders, his order is to bring John back. Miranda tells Parangoski about Maki killing the crew because she finally figured out the audio clip. Maki says that she had no choice. She's like, please talk to John. And they tase her just like when she was a kid. And the parallels in this show are so subtle and amazing that you might not fucking catch them if I didn't point them out for you. This is like Baby's first fucking screenplay that somehow got a $90 million budget. Riz hesitates to shoot John, and this gives Maki a chance to speak in Sangheili and then lunge for the artifact. It disintegrates the guy touching her, which hasn't happened at any point in the fucking show. But fuck it, that's what the plot needs, so that's what happens. And it sends out the big pulse thing again, like it did in the very first episode. So Maki and John see each other on Halo again. She says goodbye, John, with no explanation, and then John passes out, and that's it for the episode. Like, from John's perspective, she just, like, pump and dumped him. This show's so fucking bad. Like, if you think about Maki's arc, she starts out saying, I'll kill the demon. Then she kills a ship full of humans. Then she's interrogated and treated like shit by humans. Then she sees Halo, goes for a walk, and fucks a human. The human that she just referred to as Demon a few days prior. And switches sides from the Covenant, who she's been with her whole life. Then, because a couple people are mean to her, she switches back to the Covenant from humanity. What in the fuck? And this is like 3 seasons worth of character shit that they jammed into like an hour and a half of screen time. And it makes no sense. It's just fucking ridiculous. So then we have Halsey, who's just evil incarnate. She does nothing good the entire show, except save Miranda during the fight in episode 5. But with how evil she is the rest of the time, that just makes it an out-of-character moment that makes no sense. We have John, the ultra-loyal super soldier, who suddenly gets feelings, and with his feelings, all he does is throw temper tantrums and then fuck an enemy spy. And trust an enemy spy with the most powerful object they have that they don't fully understand. And also, how did it take them days or weeks to realize that this was female in this audio clip that I still don't think they should even have to begin with? Cortana's arc is the only one that could have been decent because she starts out pretty callous, but then as she sees how terrible Halsey is, she wants to leave her because she sees that Halsey is like completely ruthless. And this would be fine, but the problem is that her and John don't have an established relationship of any kind. She lied to him and wanted to control him until this episode. Again, like, if you want Cortana and John to team up and, her to abandon Halsey, then you have to have her and John have some kind of positive interaction together. The only positive interaction that they've had, if you would even call it positive, is when she helps him locate his homeworld. And that was like episode 3. And that was one scene for like 5 minutes. Like, they easily could have had her help out more during the big fight in episode 5 and maybe leak him some information when he needs it and have some kind of rapport before she just switches sides from Halsey and joins John. They're all buddy-buddy. So her arc is the only decent one, and they fucking butchered it. And also, in this universe, I can only assume that every person is a schizophrenic retard because the characters are so all over the place that no other explanation makes sense. I think my prediction for the last episode is still looking pretty good. We'll get some big action set piece on Madrigal. John will find the portal. Maybe Quan will go with him. I don't fucking know. On Madrigal. And they'll go to Halo, and that's how the fucking season will end. I still feel pretty good about that prediction. But the other artifact that I guess they need, they had no idea where it is. It got stolen in episode 5, and they know nothing about where it went because the Covenant just took it and flew off. So, not sure how they're going to jam that in. But there's a lot of unfinished shit and only one episode left. So I'm pretty confident that this last episode is going to be a complete mess where everything is just rushed through. But we'll see. That's it for this episode for me. I guess we'll see what happens next week because these characters are literally capable of anything because none of them have a personality that makes any sense. So we'll see. See ya.